Welcome to my channel. Today, I want to share with you a story about love built on patience, betrayal hiding behind gentle words, and the quiet devastation of realizing someone you trusted never existed at all. Let's dive right into it. I used to believe that trust, once built over years, could survive anything. I really did. I thought if you gave someone your patience, your care, your unwavering respect, they'd never give you a reason to question it. But here I am, 3 years and 8 months into the most devoted relationship I've ever had, wondering if everything I believed about the woman I loved was a carefully crafted illusion. Her name is Sophie, and if you met her, you'd probably like her right away. She has this disarming warmth, like the kind of person who'd stay up until 3 a.m. to help a friend through a breakup, or bring soup to a coworker she barely knows. She's soft-spoken, reads a lot of poetry, and used to doodle sunflowers on every notebook corner when we were in college. I met her during a group project in our junior year. Nothing dramatic. Just one of those accidental pairings that turn into everything. We clicked fast, but I didn't push anything. Sophie had this aura about her, something gentle, but guarded. It wasn't long into our friendship-turned-relationship that she opened up about something heavy. One night, after we'd been dating a few months, she told me she'd been sexually assaulted when she was younger. Her voice trembled, and she couldn't look me in the eye. She didn't give many details, and I didn't ask. I remember just holding her hand and telling her she never had to explain more than she wanted, that I'd never, ever pressure her into anything. From that point on, our relationship had an unspoken rule. Intimacy would be on her terms, when she was ready, and I was okay with that. I really was. I loved her. I loved her enough to wait. People always assume men have this one-track mind, like we're all craving sex every second of every day. But when someone you care about tells you they're afraid, traumatized, broken in a way you can't fix, you shift your entire mindset. You just want to make them feel safe. So for nearly 4 years, we never crossed those lines. A few kisses, cuddles, maybe a brush of her hand on my chest if she was feeling bold, but that was it. No touching beneath clothes, no suggestion of anything further. My friends sometimes teased me. 4 years and not even once. One of them laughed over beers. "You're a monk." Bro. I just smiled, shrugged it off. They didn't get it, and I never told them why, because that wasn't my story to share. Sophie trusted me with her pain, and I guarded it like it was sacred. We moved in together last spring. She'd gotten a job at a local library. I'd been promoted at the firm I worked for, and everything just felt settled. Safe, domestic. We had a little apartment with peeling yellow walls and a crooked window that whistled when it rained. But we made it home. I thought things were getting better for her, too. She laughed more, slept without the hallway light on, even joked once about us taking a trip to Paris one day. Something she never would have talked about when she was deep in her anxiety. I took all of this as progress, as healing, as trust, but that was before. The message, God, that message, it happened 2 weeks ago. Sophie had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went out to get groceries. Normally, I'd never touch it. I'm not that guy, but it buzzed multiple times. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. Curious, not snooping, I picked it up and glanced at the preview. I wish I hadn't. It was a group chat. A bunch of old college friends. Nothing weird until I saw her name beside this message. Ilamo, I told that guy I had trauma just so he wouldn't expect sex. Works every time. My stomach dropped. I stared at it for what felt like hours. Reread it. And reread it again. My brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe she wasn't talking about me. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was out of context. Maybe. But my name was in the previous messages. Liam. She'd said my name. They were talking about me. I put the phone down like it had burned me. My heart thudded so loud it drowned out everything else. My ears rang. My breath came in short gasps. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and twisted something vital, fragile. When she came back, smiling, carrying a bag of croissants and iced coffee, like nothing had happened. I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, and she tilted her head, puzzled. "Are you okay?" she asked. I nodded. Somehow, I nodded. But everything had changed. The days that followed were strange. Not in the sense that anything outwardly changed. Sophie still kissed me good morning, still folded my socks the way I liked, still hummed that Taylor Swift song when she cooked dinner. But it all felt artificial, scripted, like I was living in a version of our life that had been rehearsed too many times. Inside, I was unraveling. I tried to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, it was a joke. A really tasteless one. Maybe she said it to impress her friends, trying to fit in or look cool in some twisted way. But then again, Sophie never made those kinds of jokes. Not in the 3 years I'd known her. She hated insensitivity. Always called out people who mocked trauma. So, why? That night, I sat on the edge of our bed, watching her brush her teeth in the mirror. She was wearing one of my old hoodies, the sleeves so long they swallowed her hands. She looked so small, so familiar, so safe. And yet, I didn't feel safe. I felt like I didn't know her at all. I thought about asking her, point blank, "Hey, were you lying when you said you'd been assaulted?" But even thinking those words made my chest tighten. What if she wasn't lying? What if it really happened, and she just joked about it in a horrible moment of bad judgment? What if I asked, and it reopened something raw and real? But the worst part was, what if she was lying? I couldn't sleep that night. I laid there, stiff as a board, staring at the ceiling while her breathing deepened beside me. Every now and then she'd shift, murmur something in her sleep. Once, she reached out and curled her hand into the crook of my arm like she always did. I didn't move. I just stared into the darkness, wondering how something so simple, so sweet, could suddenly feel like a lie. The next morning, I left for work without saying much. She texted me around noon. "Hey, everything okay? You've been quiet." I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't respond. Later that evening, she made lasagna, my favorite, and lit candles on the table like she used to when we first started dating. She was trying. She sensed something was off, and she was trying to fix it in the only way she knew how. Routine, comfort, normalcy. It made me feel worse. We ate mostly in silence. I picked at the food. She smiled too much, too brightly, and kept asking questions like, "How was work?" Or "Did you see that crazy TikTok I sent?" I nodded, mumbled, forced a laugh here and there. Then, halfway through her second glass of wine, she said something that twisted the knife. "So, I've been thinking, maybe we should plan a weekend trip somewhere. Just the two of us. You know, like we used to." I blinked. "Used to?" I asked. She tilted her head. "I mean, before we got busy. Before things felt distant." Distant. It was the first time she'd acknowledged the tension. My throat tightened. "Do you think I've been distant?" I asked. She hesitated. "A little, but I get it. Work's been crazy for you. I miss you sometimes. That's all." I stared at her, at the girl I'd given everything to, the girl who, with one message, had shattered the version of her I held in my heart. And now she missed me. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, to lay her phone on the table and point to the message and shout, "Who are you talking about?" "Me? Why would you lie like that?" But instead, I just said, "Yeah, maybe we do need some time away." She smiled, relieved. "Really? Oh my God. Yes, maybe the coast. I'll look into cabins or something." I nodded, letting her dream up a future I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. That night, while she showered, I sat on the floor of our bedroom and opened her phone again. I hated myself for it. I'd never invaded her privacy before. But now I needed to know. I went back to the chat, scrolled, searched, and what I found made everything worse. More messages, more jokes. Lines like, "Guys are so easy. Just say you've got trauma and they'll treat you like a nun." "Liam still thinks I have triggers, LMAO. I just don't feel like it with him. Maybe I'll break up with him soon. He's too nice. It's getting boring." I sat there, heart in my throat, screen glowing in the dark. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I just felt cold, like the version of me that had loved her so purely had been gutted and replaced with something hollow. That night, when she came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her, skin glowing and smile bright, she crawled into bed beside me and kissed my shoulder. "I love you," she whispered. I didn't say it back. I didn't sleep that night either. Every time I closed my eyes, those messages replayed in my mind like a broken record. Her laughing, her mocking me, her calling me boring, every "I love you," every apology she'd whispered after a panic attack, every time she'd pulled away from a kiss and I'd reassured her with patience, it all twisted into a cruel performance. By the time the sun rose, I wasn't sure if I was more heartbroken or furious. I stayed in bed long after she left for work. I called in sick and sat there, staring at the ceiling, playing out dozens of conversations in my head. Some where I yelled, some where I cried, some where I begged for answers. By evening, I still didn't know which version I'd choose. When she walked through the door, grocery bags in hand, humming to herself, I felt my jaw clench. She was so casual, so oblivious. It made something inside me snap. "Hey, babe," she said cheerfully. "You feeling any better?" I stood from the couch. My voice was low. "We need to talk." She froze, her eyes scanning my face. "Okay. What's wrong?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to the kitchen counter, picked up her phone, already unlocked, and held it up. She didn't speak, but her entire face changed. Her posture stiffened. Her smile died. I saw her fingers twitch slightly, as if calculating whether to snatch it back or run. "You left it open," I said flatly. "I saw the group chat. All of it." "Silence? Say something," I added, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "Tell me it's not what it looks like. Please." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. "Is it true?" I asked. "Did you lie?" "About all of it." Still nothing. That silence broke something in me. 3 years, Sophie. Almost 4. I've respected your boundaries. I've defended you. I let people call me a doormat, a saint, a fool because I thought you'd been hurt, because I thought I was protecting you. She finally found her voice. It came out small, cracked. I didn't mean it like that." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Didn't mean what?" "That you manipulated me into a sexless relationship. That you mocked me with your friends for believing you." Her eyes welled up. "Liam? It wasn't fake. Not all of it. I didn't want to have sex. I didn't know how to say no without sounding like a terrible person. So you made up a trauma," I said, louder now. "Do you understand how messed up that is? I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did," I snapped. "You made me carry your pain like it was mine. You built this entire relationship on a lie. And now you want me to believe it was harmless." She stepped forward, reaching for my hand. I pulled back. "No," I said. "Don't. I need you to answer me. Was there ever an assault? Ever any trauma?" Her mouth opened, then closed. And in that moment, her silence spoke louder than anything. My stomach turned. "You know," I said, backing away, "I spent years thinking I was lucky to be with someone like you. That maybe real love meant patience, sacrifice. But this wasn't love. This was control. This was manipulation." Tears slid down her cheeks. "Please." "Liam, I do love you. Things got too far. I didn't know how to undo it." I stared at her, searching for the girl I thought I knew. The girl who'd held my hand when I was anxious before job interviews. The girl who made me grilled cheese on stormy days and kissed my forehead when I had migraines. But all I saw now was a stranger. "I can't do this," I said quietly. Her eyes widened. "You're leaving." I nodded. "I need space. Time. I don't even know who you are anymore." She tried to speak again, but I turned away, grabbed a bag, packed blindly, clothes, charger, wallet, and left. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just knew I couldn't breathe in that apartment anymore. Not with her. Not after everything. As I sat in my car outside a gas station hours later, hands trembling, phone buzzing with her texts, I realized something. The worst part wasn't the lie. It was the fact that I'd lost someone who never really existed in the first place. I spent the first night at a cheap motel by the freeway. The room smelled like old carpet and stale air freshener, and the water pressure in the shower felt like it was coming out of a leaky straw. But at least I could breathe. No sunflower-scented candles. No Taylor Swift on loop. No ghost of Sophie sitting across the table, smiling like nothing ever happened. I stared at the ceiling for hours, waiting for the anger to fade. It didn't. Instead, It settled into something worse, numbness. I didn't cry, not even once. That's what surprised me the most. I kept waiting for the tears to come, the kind of messy, ugly crying that makes you feel like you're purging something, but all I felt was blank. Maybe it's because I'd already mourned her. The version of Sophie I loved had died the second I read those messages. And the woman who sent them, I didn't know her. I wasn't grieving a breakup. I was grieving a ghost. Over the next few days, I moved in with my cousin Jake. He had a spare room, a decent couch, and most importantly, he didn't ask too many questions. Just handed me a beer the first night and said, "Whatever it is, Mendout, we'll get through it." I appreciated that. But even in the silence, I kept replaying everything. Not just the texts, but the memories. Our first date. The time she stayed up all night helping me prep for a presentation. The way she once cried during an episode of The Office when Jim proposed to Pam. Were those moments real, or were they just convenient pieces in her game? I didn't want to become bitter. I didn't want to become one of those guys who walks around saying, "Never trust women," or quoting podcasts about alpha males and red flags. But the betrayal cut so deep that I couldn't stop doubting everything, even myself. I mean, how had I missed it? How had I loved someone so deeply, so loyally, and not seen what she was capable of? That question haunted me more than anything. One afternoon, maybe a week after I left, Sophie texted me again. "Liam, please, can we talk? Not to fix anything. Just so I can explain." I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't respond right away. Part of me was terrified to hear more lies. But another part, the part that still heard her laugh in quiet moments, needed closure. So I agreed to meet. One coffee shop, 1 hour. Neutral ground. She looked different when she walked in. Tired, pale, she wasn't wearing makeup. No sunflower earrings, just jeans, a sweatshirt, and eyes rimmed with regret. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly. I nodded, didn't smile. She sat down and didn't touch her drink, just stared at it, like she didn't deserve the warmth. "I'm not going to ask for forgiveness," she began. "I don't expect that. I just want to tell you the truth. All of it." I said nothing. Let her speak. She told me she'd never been assaulted. Not in the way she'd said. But she had been in toxic relationships before, ones that pressured her, manipulated her. And by the time we started dating, she felt like she couldn't say no without feeling like a villain. "So I lied," she admitted. "I created a shield. I told myself it was just a little white lie to protect myself. But it turned into something bigger. And when you were so kind, so gentle," I panicked. "I kept the story going because I didn't want to lose you. But I also didn't want to be honest because I was ashamed." My jaw tightened. "Do you even know what that did to me?" I asked, my voice quiet but sharp. "You made me live in your pain. You made me believe you were healing. And I built our entire relationship around that." "I know," she whispered, "and I hate myself for it." "I don't think you do," I said. "Because if you did, you wouldn't have laughed about it. You wouldn't have turned me into a joke for your friends." Her face crumpled. Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to become that. I was stupid. I didn't know how to undo the lie without ruining everything." "You already ruined everything," I said. Silence stretched between us. Finally, I stood, grabbed my coffee. "I hope you get help. I hope you figure out why you need to lie to feel safe. But I can't be part of that story anymore." She didn't argue, didn't chase me, just nodded and looked away. That was the last time I saw her. And strangely, it didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like closure. The weeks after that final conversation were quiet. Not in the peaceful, meditative way. More like the quiet after a storm, when everything is still standing. But nothing feels quite the same. You keep walking past familiar places, familiar sounds, and yet something inside you doesn't respond the way it used to. I threw myself into work. Stayed late at the office. Took on extra projects. My boss thought I was angling for a promotion. In truth, I just couldn't stand being alone with my thoughts. Every time I had a spare moment, Sophie crept in. Not as a villain. Not even as a liar. Just as a void. Someone who used to fill my life with sunflowers and book recommendations and annoying hum tunes during dinner. Someone who, despite everything, had become a part of my identity. And now that she was gone, I didn't know who I was anymore. I kept questioning myself. Did I love her too hard? Was I too trusting? Too blind? Or maybe just too naive to think that love, by itself, was enough to keep people honest? Jake noticed I was spiraling. One night, while we watched reruns of Parks and Recca, he muted the TV and said, "Look, man, I know you're trying to be okay, but you don't have to fake it. You're allowed to be angry, or sad, or both." I didn't respond, just stared at the frozen frame of Ron Swanson holding a steak. Then Jake added, "You got played. Yeah, but you also loved someone with everything you had. That's not weakness. That's rare." That stuck with me. Maybe I had been too trusting, too kind, too patient, but maybe that wasn't a flaw. Maybe it just meant I showed up with everything I had and she didn't. And that wasn't my fault. So I started rebuilding, bit by bit. I picked up an old hobby, sketching, which I hadn't touched since college. I joined a climbing gym with Jake, even though I'm afraid of heights. I started saying yes to small things again. Happy hours, weekend hikes, brunch invites I used to decline. I still had days when the memory of her hit like a punch in the ribs, like when I walked past a flower stand and saw sunflowers, or when Taylor Swift's All Too Well played in a cafe. But grief is weird that way. It doesn't come all at once, it lingers, sneaks back in soft waves when you least expect it. Still, I was healing. I even started journaling. Nothing poetic, just small notes to myself. You deserve honesty. Being kind doesn't mean being blind. Next time, ask harder questions. It wasn't about holding grudges. It was about learning boundaries. Redefining what love meant to me. Love wasn't just patience. It wasn't just sacrifice. It was honesty. It was safety. It was being able to look someone in the eye and know that what they gave you wasn't just a story. They gave you their truth. I wasn't ready to date again, not yet. But I started noticing people again. Their smiles, their quirks, the way someone stirred their coffee while reading a paperback in a crowded cafe, the way a stranger held the door open with a tired smile. All these small moments reminded me the world hadn't ended. There was still beauty, still potential, still hope. One night, while sketching in a quiet corner of the park, a girl passed by with her dog. The pup ran straight at me, knocked my pencil out of my hand, and barked like I owed it rent. She laughed, rushed over, apologized a dozen times. We talked for a bit. Her name was Riley. She loved astronomy, had a nervous laugh, said she hated small talk but was great at deep midnight conversations. We didn't exchange numbers, but I walked away smiling for the first time in what felt like months. It wasn't love, but it was something, a crack of light after a long, cold tunnel. It's been 6 months now. 6 months since the last time I heard her voice. Since I walked out of that coffee shop and left behind not just Sophie, but the version of myself who thought love could fix anything. People think heartbreak always ends in screaming fights, slammed doors, crying in the rain. But sometimes it ends in silence, in stillness, in the slow realization that someone you gave everything to was never really holding it with care. I've thought a lot about what I would say to her now, if I could. Maybe I'd ask why she didn't trust me enough to be honest from the beginning. Maybe I'd tell her that what she did wasn't just a lie. It was a betrayal of the deepest kind. Not just of my love, but of the kind of love I believed we shared. Or maybe I wouldn't say anything at all. Because truthfully, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm just changed. And that's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't leave you broken. It leaves you altered, like scar tissue. You're still whole, but you're not the same. I've learned that love isn't about saving someone. It's not about carrying their wounds for them or excusing their choices because they've had it rough. That's not love. That's martyrdom. And love shouldn't feel like martyrdom. It should feel like partnership, like mutual trust, like honesty, even when the truth is messy. I used to think patience was the highest form of love, that if I just waited long enough, loved hard enough, endured quietly enough, it would all work out. Now I know better. Now I know that love also means having boundaries. It means asking the hard questions, not because you don't trust, but because trust is too important to leave unspoken. It means not losing yourself in someone else's story, no matter how much you want to be their hero. And most of all, It means choosing yourself when they won't. If you've been through something like this, if you've ever found yourself loving someone who only gave you half-truths, I want you to hear this. You are not naive for loving deeply. You are not stupid for believing someone's pain. You are not weak for being kind. You are human. And being human means sometimes you get burned. But it also means you get to rise. Again, wiser, stronger, more whole. I don't regret loving Sophie, because even though she lied, I loved truthfully. And that's something no one can take from me. So wherever she is now, I hope she's healing. I hope she's learned the value of truth. But I'm no longer waiting. I've got a sketchbook full of new lines, a heart slowly rebuilding, a horizon that doesn't scare me anymore. And the next time I fall in love, it won't be with a version of someone I've built from hope. It'll be with someone real, someone honest, someone who shows up fully with their past, their flaws, their truth, and says, "This is me. Can you love me anyway?" And I'll smile, because I'll finally know how to say yes without losing myself in the process. Thanks for tuning in to Reddit Stories. New tales drop daily drama, love, or ghostly glories. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss the next story we tell. Got thoughts to share? Drop them below. We read them all, just so you know.